Guard your peace like it's sacred, because it is. It's not just a nice idea or a feel-good mantra. It's a boundary, a standard, a lifestyle. It's the quiet decision you make every day to protect your mind, your heart, your spirit from anything that drains, distorts, or disrupts what God is building in you. And hear me when I say this peace doesn't always come easy. You have to fight for it, not with your fists, but with your focus. The moment you start valuing your peace, you start seeing life differently. What used to feel familiar suddenly feels noisy. What you used to entertain starts to feel heavy. You begin to notice the subtle ways chaos tries to sneak in through people, conversations, distractions, even your own overthinking. And when you know what peace feels like, you get quicker at recognizing what it's not. It's in the phone call that always ends with you feeling worse than when it started. It's in the message you reread 10 times trying to decode what someone really meant. It's in the environments where you keep lowering your volume just to keep others comfortable. It's in the connections that constantly make you question your worth, your voice, your beauty, your intuition. That's not peace. That's performance. That's tolerating what you were born to transform. And baby, you weren't made to live in survival mode. You were made to thrive. When a woman learns to guard her peace, she stops making herself available to every invitation. She doesn't show up out of obligation anymore. She shows up from alignment. She starts asking different questions. Not will they be mad if I say no, but will I be out of alignment if I say yes? Because she knows she can't afford to trade her peace just to please people who wouldn't sit with her in her pain. That kind of discernment, it's developed in stillness. It's developed in quiet mornings before the world wakes up. It's developed in the sacred moments where you and God are the only ones in the room, and you finally hear your own voice again. That's where clarity lives. That's where healing happens. That's where you learn that protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's wise. There's nothing selfish about choosing stillness over drama. There's nothing wrong with choosing solitude over noise. And there is nothing weak about walking away from anything that makes you question your value. Sometimes strength looks like silence. Sometimes growth looks like disappearing to rebuild. Sometimes power looks like not responding at all. You don't owe anyone access to the version of you that took years to become. And if they can't respect your boundaries, they never respected your breakthrough. You've worked too hard to lose yourself again just to keep a connection that doesn't see your worth. Your peace is not up for negotiation. A peaceful woman is a powerful woman. She doesn't chase. She doesn't beg. She doesn't prove. She knows that what's meant for her won't come with confusion, constant anxiety, or a need to shrink herself. It'll come with clarity, it'll come with consistency, it'll come with calm, because that's what peace brings, stability in the storm. Not a life without challenges, but a soul that knows how to be still in the middle of it. And that's the kind of woman who attracts the best, because she is the best. She's chosen peace, and peace never shows up empty. Tell yourself the truth even when it hurts, because healing doesn't begin with pretending. It doesn't begin with filters or fancy captions or rehearsed answers. It begins in the raw, unfiltered moments when you stand in front of the mirror and finally admit to yourself what you've been avoiding. The truth doesn't always feel good, but it will always set you free, and some of the most powerful women you'll ever meet are the ones who had the courage to look at their own reflection and say, I deserve better than this, and I know it. Telling yourself the truth is not about shame. It's about freedom. It's being honest enough to admit when you stayed too long, when you ignored the red flags because your heart wanted to believe in the potential, when you silenced your intuition because you didn't want to be too much, when you settled because you were tired of starting over, when you smiled in public but cried in secret. It takes strength to confront those moments, but that strength, it's what births transformation. You don't grow from what you deny, you grow from what you confront. And when you begin to live in truth, everything around you begins to shift. Your standards change, your voice gets stronger, your peace gets deeper, your discernment sharpens. You start attracting what aligns with your healed self, not your hurting self. Because when you lie to yourself, you end up building your life on a shaky foundation. You entertain things that look good but feel wrong. You say yes when your soul is screaming no. You hold on out of fear instead of walking away in faith. You keep busy so you don't have to face what's really going on inside. But the truth will wait. It won't leave you alone. It will sit quietly in the corners of your mind until you're brave enough to face it. And when you finally do, that's where the power is. That's when you stop living for approval and start living in alignment. That's when you stop asking, what's wrong with me, and start asking, what part of me needs healing? Truth doesn't always come dressed in beauty. It often arrives in discomfort, but that discomfort is the doorway to your next level. You'll never rise higher than the level of truth you're willing to walk in. So stop lying to yourself to keep others comfortable. Stop lying to yourself to hold on to a version of love that's rooted in fear. Stop lying to yourself just because it's easier to keep pretending than to start rebuilding. You deserve honesty. You deserve clarity. You deserve a life that doesn't require you to hide or shrink or apologize for wanting more. Tell yourself the truth about the patterns you've ignored, about the boundaries you've broken, about the woman you've become in order to survive, and the woman you're ready to become to finally live. Truth is not your enemy. It is your mirror, your compass, your breakthrough. It may shake you at first, but it will steady you in the end. Because when you're honest with yourself, nobody else can manipulate you. When you know your worth, you stop begging for crumbs. When you speak your truth, you start walking in purpose. And when you live from a place of truth, you stop settling for anything less than wholeness. Create space for what you're praying for, because you can't receive with hands that are still full of what you should have released. You can't expect the new to fit in places where the old still lingers, whispering doubts and planting fear. Making room isn't just about clearing your schedule. It's about clearing your spirit. It's about being honest enough to admit that some things, some people, some habits, some mindsets can't go with you into the next chapter. And sis, the chapter God is writing now, it needs space. Sometimes we pray for more, but we're still holding on to the less. We say we want peace, but we stay loyal to chaos. We say we want real love, but we entertain confusion. We say we're ready, but we're still tangled in what broke us. And God is like, I'm trying to give it to you, but you won't put the old stuff down. Creating space means being intentional with your energy. It means refusing to rent out sacred ground in your heart to things that no longer serve you. It means decluttering your emotions, letting go of resentment, guilt, shame, and all the things that make you believe you're not worthy of what you're asking for. You are worthy, but you have to make room for it. You can't keep entertaining dead, end conversations, and expect divine connections. You can't keep circling the same cycles and expect a new result. You can't keep saying yes out of fear and expect bold blessings. At some point, you have to choose to release, and releasing doesn't always come with closure. Sometimes you have to forgive without an apology. Sometimes you have to walk away without a final explanation. Sometimes you have to delete the number, unfollow the page, distance yourself from the comfort, not because you're bitter, but because you're ready to walk in alignment, ready to receive what doesn't confuse you, ready to stop shrinking to make others comfortable, ready to believe that the desires in your heart are not too big, they are just right, but to carry something that real, that weighty, that beautiful, you need space. So start preparing even if nothing's changed yet. Start setting your table even if the guests haven't arrived. Start showing up like it's already on the way, because that's what faith is. It's preparation in the presence of nothing. Faith doesn't wait for the door to open before it packs the bags. Faith says, I may not see it, but I'm going to live like it's already coming. Create space in your routine, in your mind, in your heart. In your home, start clearing the emotional clutter and see how quickly clarity finds you. Start letting go of what feels familiar but no longer fits. You can't hold on to history and reach for destiny at the same time. God can't bless who you pretend to be, and He can't bless a life that's already too crowded for the blessing to land. So make room, not out of desperation, but out of expectation, because you're not just hoping anymore, you're preparing. You've asked for alignment, you've prayed for wholeness, you've cried for healing. Now it's time to make space for it, because what's coming needs your full attention, not the distracted, overwhelmed, half-available version of you. It needs the healed, open, present version, and that version is created in the space you're brave enough to clear. Delight in who you are before anyone else does, because the world will always try to convince you that your value is tied to someone seeing it. But real power, real beauty, real confidence, it starts when you see it, before the compliments, before the invitations, before the likes and the calls and the confirmations. It starts when you decide that your presence is enough, that your softness is not a weakness, that your story still matters even if nobody claps when you tell it. There is something so powerful about a woman who delights in herself, not because she's perfect, but because she's home. She's not waiting to be discovered. She's not waiting to be chosen. She's not waiting for a relationship, a ring, or a role to give her identity. She already knows who she is, and that doesn't mean she doesn't have insecurities. It doesn't mean she always has it together. It means she's done outsourcing her joy. She's done editing herself to be palatable. She's done shrinking to avoid intimidating, because she's finally realized that her power doesn't lie in being understood by everyone. It lies in being true to herself. Delighting in who you are means you stop apologizing for being both powerful and tender. You stop guessing your voice. You stop needing external permission to feel good about yourself. You start honoring your boundaries not just in relationships, but in your thoughts. No more letting that inner critic run wild. No more repeating old lies from old wounds. You start catching yourself when you speak small about yourself. You start celebrating the woman you're becoming, even if no one else notices the growth but you. It's waking up and saying, I like who I'm becoming. Even when the mirror doesn't reflect perfection, even when you're still in process, even when no one else affirms it yet, it's saying, she's not there yet, but I'm proud of her anyway. When a woman delights in herself, she doesn't need the room to make her feel worthy. She brings the worth into the room. She doesn't wait for someone else to validate her light. She owns it. She wears her joy like an armor. Not loud, not boastful, but unshakable, and people notice, because peace looks good on her, wholeness glows on her. Confidence doesn't need to speak loudly. It speaks in presence, and when you delight in yourself, you stop begging for what you know you already carry. You stop proving, you stop performing, you stop pretending, because nothing is more attractive than a woman who's not trying to be anything other than herself. She walks into the room and doesn't need attention. She commands it. Not with her outfit or her title, but with her authenticity. The truth is, you teach the world how to treat you by how you treat yourself. If you ignore your needs, others will too. If you hide your light, others will overlook it. But when you love yourself deeply, delightfully, consistently, others will either rise to meet you there or fall away, and that's okay. Because when you learn to delight in who you are, you also learn that not everyone deserves access to you. You were never meant to wait to be celebrated. You were meant to become the celebration, to be the kind of woman who smiles at her own reflection because she's no longer trying to escape it, the kind of woman who doesn't need constant reassurance because she's become her own encourager, the kind of woman who wakes up grateful not because everything is perfect, but because she knows she is growing, healing, rising, and that is enough, more than enough. Don't attract to fill emptiness. Become whole to attract alignment. There is a difference between being wanted and being aligned, a difference between being chosen and being cherished, and when you're moving from emptiness, from a space of lack, even the wrong attention can feel like love. But when you're whole, you start to see through the noise, you start to crave depth over desire. You're no longer impressed by potential. You're anchored in purpose. Attracting from emptiness looks like performing. Like bending yourself to fit into spaces that don't reflect your truth. like mistaking attention for affection, like overgiving just to feel valuable. It's exhausting, and it's unsustainable. Because when you don't know who you are, you will settle for whoever tells you what you want to hear. But there is something sacred about a woman who decides to pause the search for love until she's met herself first, until she's healed the wounds that once made her think she needed someone else to complete her, until she's learned how to enjoy her own company, until she's figured out how to feel full, without needing to be filled. Wholeness doesn't mean perfection. It means you've stopped bleeding on people who didn't cut you. It means you've done the deep work. It means you've stopped using connection as a distraction. You've allowed God to fill the places where trauma used to live. You've stopped looking for someone to rescue you because you've realized you were never broken to begin with, just buried. And now you've resurrected. When you're whole, your energy shifts. You no longer chase, you attract. Because your presence speaks before you do. You don't have to prove you're worthy. You know you are. And when someone enters your life, you don't ask, do they like me? You ask, does this feel like alignment? You don't get lost in the butterflies. You look for consistency. You ask real questions. Do they support my peace? Do they honor my boundaries? Do they reflect the love I've already cultivated within myself? Because now you've learned. Love is not a bandage. It's a bonus. It's not supposed to fix you. It's supposed to join you on the journey. Attracting from wholeness means you're okay with being alone if it means staying in alignment. It means you're no longer addicted to the idea of being chosen, because you've already chosen you. You've already decided that the love you desire must first be the love you give yourself. And once you've done that, you don't settle. You don't compromise your calling for companionship. You don't lower your standard because of loneliness. You understand that waiting in wholeness is better than rushing into dysfunction. You begin to attract differently. People who are drawn to your truth, not just your appearance. People who value your peace, not just your presence. People who aren't intimidated by your strength, but inspired by it. And even when those people don't come right away, you don't panic, because you trust the timing. You trust that the version of you you're becoming will attract the love that's worthy of her. This is the shift. When you're no longer dating to feel good enough, you already know you are. You're not looking to be saved. You've been delivered. You're not begging to be seen. You're already standing in your own light. So now, it's not about being chosen. It's about choosing yourself daily, living from overflow, not survival, rooted in purpose, anchored in truth, and completely, beautifully, undeniably whole. Trust your intuition even when it contradicts your emotions, because your feelings can scream loud, but your spirit whispers truth, and sometimes that whisper is easy to ignore, especially when your heart is entangled, when your hope is high, when you want so badly for something to work that you silence the knowing deep down inside you. But that knowing, that's your divine compass, that's your inner wisdom, that's the quiet voice that's seen the end from the beginning and is trying to keep you from heartbreak disguised as desire. Emotions are real, but they are not always reliable. They rise and fall, depending on what you see, what you hear, what you hope for. They get caught up in chemistry, in charm, in potential, but intuition, it doesn't get swayed by surface, it sees behind the smiles. It picks up on energy, not just words. It notices patterns, not just promises. And yet, how often do we feel something isn't right, but talk ourselves out of it? We label it as fear. We tell ourselves we're being too sensitive. We wait for a sign, while ignoring the 10 red flags that already waved in front of us. We convince ourselves to stay, to hold on, to be patient, even when everything in our spirit is saying, let go. But trusting your intuition means being willing to disrupt your comfort. It means making decisions that don't always make sense on paper. It means walking away from someone who checks every box but still leaves your soul unsettled. It means honoring your own wisdom, even when it makes others uncomfortable. Even when it breaks your own heart a little, because sometimes protection looks like pain in the moment, When you trust your intuition, you start walking in a different kind of confidence, not loud, not arrogant, just clear. You don't need all the answers. You just need peace. You don't need everyone to agree. You just need to feel aligned. You stop second guessing yourself because you've learned to recognize the voice of your inner knowing. You understand that your emotions might want the fairy tale, but your intuition wants the truth, and truth is always safer than fantasy. This doesn't mean you become hard or cold or guarded. It means you become grounded, rooted in discernment. You stop letting loneliness trick you into connections that drain you. You stop calling confusion chemistry. You stop trying to turn potential into partnership, because your spirit is no longer willing to compromise for the sake of a temporary feeling. Intuition protects you from what your heart isn't ready to see. It reminds you of your worth when you're tempted to settle. It pulls you back to center when you start drifting toward desperation. And when you learn to listen to it consistently, it becomes your most trusted advisor. Some of the most painful lessons come from ignoring that still small voice. The one that said, "This isn't it." The one that whispered, "Something feels off." But there's no shame in missing it before. Just don't miss it again. Now you know better. Now you listen. Now you trust. Even when it contradicts what you feel, you follow what you know, because intuition may not always speak first, but it never lies. And when you live by that truth, you stop chasing what was never for you and start receiving what's been waiting on the other side of obedience. The truth is, the kind of woman who attracts the best isn't focused on chasing love. She's focused on becoming it. She's done with survival mode. She's done with trying to prove her worth through relationships that require her to dim her light. She's no longer available for what drains her. Now she's rooted in truth, wholeness, peace, and power. She no longer confuses attention with value or potential with purpose. She knows that the love she calls in will reflect the love she's already cultivated within herself. She's honest with herself even when it hurts. She makes space not out of desperation, but out of expectation. She delights in her identity, not waiting to be chosen, but knowing she's already enough. She no longer attracts from emptiness. She draws from overflow. And she moves with deep, unshakable trust in her intuition, even when her emotions beg her to settle. This woman, she doesn't wait to be validated. She's already living in her becoming. And because of that, the love she attracts is not confused, chaotic, or conditional. It's clear, whole, and aligned. And that, beloved, is the power of a woman who chooses herself first.